Hello friends, welcome back to the channel. It is officially summer, and I know it feels like it probably has been summer for a while, but technically summer only started last week. So today I wanted to talk about some summer classic book recommendations that I have for you. Some of these are going to be books that I have read. Others are ones that have been on my TBR for quite a while now. If you are new to classics or don't really know where to start, I do have another video of classics for beginners that I will link here as well if you're interested in that. Just giving some more general tips, books that I would push you towards if you are new to classics, if you're kind of intimidated by them. And I also give a lot of my overall personal favorites for classics, but these ones are going to be specifically for the summer months. So when I think of summer classics, I think of more adventurous stories as opposed to some of those classics that are a little bit more mundane, a little more existential, a little more melodramatic. But for summertime, I'm thinking summer romance, summer flings, sexual awakenings, vacationing in the Riviera, more having fun, going on adventures, a little bit more just upbeat classics in general. So I have 10 recommendations for you today, and we're just going to jump right into it. The first book on this list is The Count of Monte Cristo. This is one of the most iconic adventure novels of all time. It's also recently been the subject of some memes and trends going around asking, is it ever that serious? Because this is a chonker of a book. It's extremely long, but I have not read this yet. It's been high up on my classics TBR for quite a while. I am also a bit intimidated by it. People just say this is such an interesting, exciting, fast-paced, albeit long, engaging read. This is about a man who is falsely imprisoned and learns about the buried treasure on the Isle of Monte Cristo. And he is fueled by this knowledge. He wants to find this treasure. He desperately wants to escape prison so that he can find this treasure and use it to seek revenge on the men who accused him of this crime. So a story of retribution, revenge, determination, and just an overall adventure. Lots of drama, I would assume. I love a revenge story. If you have a long vacation, if you have a long flight, if you're spending 8 hours a day laying by the lake or the beach and you just want something to completely be engrossed in and have an exciting adventure, I think this would be perfect. The next book on this list is The Secret Garden, and this is actually a children's novel. I think that the summer is such a good time to read something that feels really nostalgic, whether that's something you did read when you were a child or something that just makes you feel kind of that way, something a little bit more whimsical, lighthearted, nostalgic. This is the story of a young orphan who, after her parents died, I believe of cholera, some kind of sickness, she is sent off to this dungy, dusty estate. There's like a grumpy old uncle, a cousin that she never sees, who everyone just tells her is very sick, and she uncovers a door to a secret garden. Through the uncovering of this secret garden, she's really able to grow and mature. She uses her imagination. She's understanding the healing and positive power of nature and imagination and fun. She brings her sick cousin along with her. They bond. They just overall kind of heal, like physically and emotionally, through the magic of nature and imagination. And it's just such a sweet story. One that's just very easy and kind of a low lift as well if you're looking for that. The next book on this list is kind of a lesser known classic. This is Summer. This is a very common theme, I feel like, in these kind of coming of age, kind of sexual awakening classics where a young woman is on a summer vacation or someone else kind of arrives from the summer and there's like a summer fling happening. That's what happens in this book. A charming young man arrives to her very judgmental small town. They have a lot of passion, secret meetings, and it's very much just about the societal expectations of kind of that time period for women and them really trying to come to terms with desire and their sexual feelings, their romantic feelings. Sounds very just lush and like lustful. Just basically like a summer romance juxtaposing the kind of expectations of a more rigid, traditional women's role in a small New England town. Said to be a very feminist tale of a young woman's summer romance and sexual awakening. My next recommendation is one that I have talked about on the channel before. It is one of my personal favorites, and that is East of Eden by John Steinbeck. To me, this is very much a summer read because it takes place in the very dry, hot Central Valley of California. It just feels like a summer read to me. It is quite long. It is like, I think 600 pages or so, but this is essentially kind of a biblical retelling of the story of Cain and Abel. It follows multi-generations. It spans over many, many years. Such an emotionally driven and interesting read to me. This one's mostly on this list again due to kind of the setting of California. There's a lot of like farming and stuff involved, which to me just kind of gives those vibes. I think John Steinbeck is one of the very quintessential American writers. A lot of his works are set in California. There's a lot of talks about like the water and heat waves and tractors and fixing the old cars and things like that that are just so like the American dream during the period when everyone was kind of trying to settle in California and make something for their family. I just think it's very like picturesque Americana, right? And I feel like that's very summer. Like I said, this is a multi-generational kind of story, essentially about like good and evil, about free will, about how your life choices, you know, can affect your life. A lot of, like I said, religious undertones with this, but even as someone who's not a religious person, I just really am so obsessed with this, and I think it is one of the best classics I've ever read. Speaking of farms, the next book on this list is Animal Farm. This is technically a novella, so it's quite short. You could literally just read this in a day when you have some spare time. But Animal Farm comes from one of the most iconic dystopian authors of all time. This is a very political, dystopian, satirical book. I know that that can be a struggle for some people, and it might not be what you want to read in the summer at all, because you're like, I just want to have fun. I don't want to think about politics and the total clusterfuck that is, you know, even having to have the headspace and the mental capacity to even think about those things. I totally get it. Animal Farm is basically just about, it's like a beast, what is it called? A beast fable where the pigs are anthropomorphic. I think that's the correct word for this. Where basically like the pigs are human, right? They have human thoughts, human traits, they speak to each other. The novel is in the POV of a literal pig on a farm, and all of these pigs are organizing to revolt against their like abusive tyrant of a farm owner. This was basically inspired by the Russian Revolution and Stalin's regime. It's a critique of totalitarianism, of tyranny, of dictatorship, and basically through the story you learn the very hard truth that even through revolution, even through movements that are centered for peace and equality for everyone and people wanting freedom, they can so easily be corrupted and taken down from the inside because the power dynamic is so fragile. So just a very impactful, interesting read that I think everyone should read once in their life. And again, if you don't have the capacity for that, I completely understand, but I did want to put it on this list. This next one is a lot more fun, I promise. And I did mention this again in my classics for beginners recommendations video. This is The Great Gatsby. It's one of my personal favorites. So like think old money, roaring 20s, again, Americana, the American dream, like hot summer nights, people sipping champagne and there's fireworks going off. It's just like the setting and the descriptions are so lush and vivid in this. I just think it's so iconic. But this is basically the story of a wealthy man, Gatsby, who is essentially idealizing and reminiscing on his past relationship with his neighbor Daisy. It's all very rich people problems. And one of the most interesting aspects of this is how even these people who on the outside are so wealthy and they are, you know, the top of society and they're doing everything they're supposed to do and they're having all these parties and they're all getting crazy drunk and, you know, having sex and doing all these things, but they're all actually so lonely and miserable. I just think it's a perfect one. Really fun. A lot of parties, a lot of drinking, but also a lot of drama if you're into that. Next book is The Adventures of Tom Sawyer. I don't know about you, but I read this in high school. So again, it just really brings me back to like that nostalgic classic reading list vibe with this one. This one is set in Missouri, like along the Mississippi River, and it's basically a coming of age story of this young kid. It's a very much light-hearted kind of adventure story again, where this set in a time where kids just had such a crazy different childhood experience than we have today. He's being a menace, he's pulling pranks, he's kissing girls, he's hanging out with his friends, he's, you know, just doing all these crazy things, staying out in the middle of the night, you know, running away, like just doing all these crazy like kid things, you know, playing in the river. And then the story kind of takes a turn when he and his friend Huck Finn, who is the other character for the next book of this, The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn, they witness a murder. And so this kind of very seemingly lighthearted, you know, boy and story takes a bit more of a serious turn, and they have to kind of grow up a little bit, and they deal with like a guilty conscience and like morality and what they should do and what right and wrong is. It's just very much like vibes of like, okay, no phone. These kids were just living such a different life and this was such a different time. This is like a time capsule of a story, of an adventure. Next we have To the Lighthouse. This is the most kind of reflective, melancholy book on this list. This is giving very sad girl summer energy. I did last summer do a sad girl summer book recommendations video. If you're more into like the melancholy, you know, you kind of want to just sit in a dark room in the summer because it's so hot, you don't have good memories of summer, this one might be for you. This one is about a young man who, it's set over the course of 2 different summers, again, going to like his family's summer house. And it starts with him wanting to go see a lighthouse, right? So To the Lighthouse. But his father like quickly shuts him down. And so it kind of sets the scene for the rest of the book, spanning over various timelines of the kind of family dynamic. It's very stream of consciousness, but it's set in Scotland. So I think that sounds very interesting as well. And again, I do love a good melancholy, very, you know, woe is me type of story every once in a while. Next is A Room with a View. This is another kind of romantic, you know, sexual awakening, summer fling kind of story. This one is set in Florence, Italy, when a young girl and her kind of uptight, cranky cousin, both from England, are doing their summer trip to Florence. As a young girl does, she meets this young man who just totally like sweeps her off her feet, is totally different than the type of men that she is supposed to be with, the ones who she kind of interacts with on a daily life in her kind of more conservative, you know, elite society type of England life that she lives. It's very much giving The Notebook, where she meets this, you know, young guy, and then she returns home for real life. And summer's over, and she, you know, gets set up for an engagement, does all the things that she's supposed to do, and it's just kind of her coming to terms with herself and having that awakening, figuring out what she wants, you know, kind of feminist type of vibes. Sounds like there's a lot of juxtaposition again with like that sun-drenched, super romantic, hot Italy scenes, and then she returns to like dark, dreary England. And then lastly on this list, we have Anne of Green Gables, which is a very iconic classic. Similar to The Secret Garden, this is about a young orphan girl who is sent off to live with her family, but as opposed to the kind of stubborn and bratty attitude of the other main character in The Secret Garden, Anne is a very warm, energetic, curious child who just touches the lives of everyone that she meets in this new town of hers. I mean, this one just screams summer, right? It's like in this quaint country town and she's just like off doing adventures, and she really settles into like her childhood after like a very traumatic event, obviously. She learns all these kind of lessons and is also teaching some of these other older people lessons herself due to her just really charismatic and sweet personality and disposition. And I just think it sounds like the perfect summer classic read. Very whimsical, very wholesome, very lighthearted overall. That is it for my summer classic book recommendations. I hope you all enjoyed it. Let me know if you've read any of these classics in the comments below. Be sure to give it a like and subscribe if you enjoyed it. I would really appreciate it. I will catch you in the next one.